record this. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Brian Quad, the founder of MPH Tech Academy, where we coach you through the four-step framework that we teach over here to land your next role. If you joined us for our last webinar, we went over the four-step job search strategy, step by step. One being revamping the resume, then briefly going over LinkedIn optimization, then job search strategies, and finally the interview prep once you land those interviews, right? And this is all inclusive of how to land your next opportunity. Today, specifically, we want to give a deeper dive into the resumes and how to revamp properly, how to optimize it properly for the ATS and to apply to jobs more strategically so that you actually get picked and chosen. And today we have our two awesome recruiters from MPH Tech Academy, Dan and Kirsten, that's going to be hosting this webinar. Dan, would you like to give a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So like Brian said, my name is Daniel. I have been an advisor and mentor at MPH Tech Academy for over a year and a half now. Just a little bit about my background. I have over 4 years of experience in recruiting. I have experience working at more smaller companies, mid-sized companies, and also enterprise companies. Kind of some of the highlights of my experience is having to also do a lot of good recruiting for Adobe, where I focused on their Adobe consulting engineering services. Then I also have experience working on the agency side of things. So I've supported the recruiting needs of other clients, such as like Dolby, Adobe again, Workday, EY, a variety of other mid-market tech companies as well. So that's kind of a little about my background. I have a background in tech, healthcare, accounting, a variety of other different industries as well. So I've kind of seen the full gambit of very niche roles to kind of more like general roles as well. So that's kind of a really quick background about myself. And then I'll pass it to Kirsten just to go a little bit over about her background as well.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kirsten. I've been at MPH not as long as Dan, so I've been there for about 4 months. I have about 7 years of experience in recruiting now. I would say my background, so I'm primarily on like the sourcer function. So really like day to day, like I'm really like looking through lots and lots of resumes. So I would say my background is primarily in the big tech side of things. So prior to MPH, I was at Meta, primarily supporting like product in the analytics space. And then prior to that, I was at Uber on just like general engineering. And then I also do have some experience more on the agency side of things. So have also kind of seen exposure all the way from like tech, non-tech, like startups, big companies, you name it.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. And the way we wanted to run this webinar for today was some of you have submitted resumes for us to review. So we're going to go into breakout rooms and Dan's going to review a couple resumes, and it's going to be more of an more intimate setting so that you guys can ask specific questions on why and the how of what they did with that resume. Okay. And Kirsten's going to have her own breakout room as well. And I'm going to be bouncing it between both just to make sure everyone's supported and we can go from there. And if we have extra time within the hour, we could also review your resume if you have any questions or any questions in general with your job search. Sound good? Cool. All right. I'm going to try to break us out into specific breakout rooms right now. So once you get the prompt, hit OK and go into your breakout rooms. And give us a moment. Sign manually. Okay. Rooms, Kirsten, and Dan. All righty. Kirsten, who did you have to review for your resumes?
I had Marissa and Mamfi.
Okay. There you go. Got you there. And one more. Okay. Okay, I'm going to open all the rooms and let's see. All right. Everyone go to your assigned rooms. Cool. All right, I invited every single person in this meeting to separate breakout rooms. Please go into your respective rooms. Let me know if you guys need anything. Okay. Jen, are you there? Right, I will be joining the breakout rooms.
That'll be kind of like going through. And before I get into like the resumes, the way that I'm going to kind of like structure the specific session is I think just generally I wanted to ask just everyone who's in my breakout room if they have like any just general specific questions I can kind of like answer at this time. Before I get a little bit more micro to these specific like resumes. And then I'll kind of leave it up to, again, if we happen to have a little bit like extra time, like feel free to like drop your like Google Docs like resume if you happen to have it on there, and I can take a really quick look and kind of give my initial like impressions or just like my thoughts. So that's kind of how we'll structure things. And then yeah, before I kind of like ask just for like general questions, I do want to kind of just premise like my methodology around the resume and what my thoughts are on the resume as a as a having been like a sourcer for a Fortune 500 company at Adobe, and then also having
lately with my resume, and so I was lucky to find this meetup group, and was wondering if I can get some help.
Well, welcome. Does
Thank
anyone
you.
else want to intro?
I'll say hi. Hi, my name is Marisa. I am in the Los Angeles area, though I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area up until about 3 months ago, thinking I had job security. Almost 3 years at my company, but was laid off a couple weeks ago. So now I'm just trying to get back out there and do my thing. So happy to be here and nice to meet you guys. I also have a dog that might make noise. I have a little Great Dane pup down here snoozing away.
Oh.
So cute, Marissa. I just moved from San Francisco to LA as well. So very similar story and glad you can make it today.
Thanks.
Well, feel free if anyone else wants to intro. If not, I'm just more than happy to kind of go into a little bit. I know Brian mentioned a little bit of what we do at MPH. And this, session is going to be primarily focused on the resume review. Just to kind of give a little bit more context and like my background. So my role is generally like the sourcer function. So yeah, day in, day out, I'm looking at resumes. I'm doing like searches to find folks. So very familiar with that side of kind of your job search. I was also laid off recently, so I'm going through it as well. Definitely, it's been a very challenging market, I would say. So I think just like having like a really good resume is just really important in this market. Some kind of like general tips, I would say. A lot of these you may have heard, may have not, but I'm happy to kind of go through kind of like the general, and then we can also go through a couple of the resumes that we received as well. So I think number one, first and foremost, is really just having a ATS compliant resume. I'll once I kind of like show the resume open, I'll kind of go over like what's essential for that. But the reasoning behind that really is that I would say like the more simple, the better. Ones that have a lot of like pictures or kind of even like 2 columns, they don't always like translate that well into the ATS system. Words might get like jumbled, things of those nature. So I would say, yeah, just simpler the better. And also with that too, I think there are better ATS systems out there than other, but when you're like transferring over skills, I think it just like makes your life easier as you're applying for roles. I think the second part is really just making sure you have just like really just making sure like your email is, professional, as well as your LinkedIn as well. And making sure that's top of format, like on the top, just your phone number, your email, your LinkedIn. And then I would say for some folks that maybe they're on the design side or maybe they're on the technical side, making sure you're having like your website on there or your GitHub, for instance. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, this is the resume template that we share over here. Personally, this is pretty much what my resume looks like and has landed me all those opportunities. So I would recommend using this template that I just shared in the chat. Super clear, just like Kirsten said, and having all your contact info listed out here so it's easy to reach for the recruiter to reach you. And then just notice how there's no crazy pictures, there's no 2 columns over here. And I know that the market and maybe great marketing has told you otherwise of like having a nice aesthetic, resume, but like honestly, less is more over here and it's less confusing and it will show up to be exactly the way it is over here versus being all jumbled up in the ATS. So I recommend using this formatting. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I would say format pretty simple, like just making sure pretty clear of like your experience. One thing to note, I would say in this market is there's different ways you can format your resume, right? I think more traditional is you usually have your summary, your professional experiences with your education. If you're newer in your field, it make more sense to put your education first. If you have like experience within your education that is relevant to the job description, really kind of play around with it to see what works best for you. I would say for like me, for instance, like with my experience, I was laid off before, but I have been doing work at MPH. So I'm actually going to put that ahead as like project experience just to see like, hey, like, even though I was laid off, I am still developing other skills. I'm still, doing work part-time just to kind of bridge that gap that folks might tend to see. And then something else to also know is what's like really important in terms of like context, I would say generally for each experience, you probably don't want more than like 1 to 2 sentences per line. I would say like the more simple, the better, and really just getting your point across. I would say a very common format is usually kind of like the XYZ format. And really what that means is accomplishing X by measuring Y and doing Z. And I have had like questions in the past where it's just like, okay, but like my experience is not always like measurable. Do your best. I would say like there's so many different kinds of metrics you can use, whether that's like increased or reduce. It could
data analytics, employee engagement, relations management. I'm very curious, like what types of more hard skills that you have, right? So like instead of maybe having like relations management, maybe I would rather see like, oh, you have experience with Asana or like
I
Monday.com
actually do.
or like, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, I do have a lot of experience in Asana.
Mhm.
I did the training for our new hire employees as well.
Awesome.
So I guess I could have put that.
Yeah, and so kind of like the way that you format this is like it's really kind of up to you. Like a really common thing that people do is like they either have their skills like more so like listed. So instead of like bullet point strengths, you can just put like skills like right here. Maybe potentially move it to the left side, and then just put like Asana, comma, Monday.com, comma. And you kind of like list out those hard skills. And then if you still feel like you want to list out your more qualitative like skills, such as like business process improvement or employee engagement, like you can list that as well. But as like a technical recruiter, like I'm very interested in the more like hard skills. So like that's something that I would do. Just my like 2 cents. Does that like make sense?
Totally. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And that's what I wasn't sure about. Because a lot of like jobs that I have been applying for look for these, like these are kind of like the key things that they're looking for, and that I can also apply in, my previous job roles. So that's why I put that there. But I was also starting to think about, like you said, more technical, like hard skills. And I do have, like I said, Asana for sure. But to go to your earlier question for certification, no, I was looking into like the beginning, like if you're interested in project management, you can take a course as well. And then I think it's called a camp certification. I think PMP, you actually have to be doing the work in different types of projects in order to be eligible to even take it.
Okay.
And I think it would be easier for me if I was to transition more into a project program management type of role. It would be easy to apply what I'm studying as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's definitely really good to know. I also do know that the company that creates the PMP certification, they also do have an associate like PMP, which I think it's like you don't need like as much like experience. I would say like kind of generally from that specific company, like those are probably one of the most like sought out like certifications. Like it kind of gives you like essentially a stamp of approval. But bar all of that, you can also like again like in potentially like this summary like list out like you are taking classes. Again, like I think like if you are trying to transition, people want to see, or at least recruiters want to see like a proactiveness of like what you're kind of focusing on to like move into that direction. So that's again, that's kind of like my 2 cents there. And then as I kind of get into like some of the experience like side of things, I think like kind of what we had been building upon in terms of like your hard skills or like the software experience that you have with those certain ones like Asana. I didn't have a chance to like completely go through all of these bullet points, but I think my initial like read through is like like you can definitely include that in your bullet points. So like a hypothetical bullet point was like, it sounded like you said you onboarded a lot of people like into Asana. So basically like onboarding them, getting them set up, and then basically you managing like the kind of admin side. That is a very that's actually a very high desired skill, like someone that understands like the onboarding, how to get people bought into the actual like project management tool. So that's kind of like something you could do, like a potential bullet point was like onboarded 50% or onboarded 50 new users like to Asana, which resulted in like a 80% increase of efficiency of like projects like being finished a lot faster, resulting in like something being done a lot quicker, or a project being done a lot quicker. So that's kind of like one potential like a bullet point to kind of put on. I do see like manage high impact project portfolio, so that's really good. I think like I'm curious on like what type of, and this is kind of getting into my next bullet, my next like piece of advice is like, I do see like you have a lot of numbers, which is good. Kind of like my general methodology on how I look at bullet points when it comes to like numbers is like I kind of want to see exactly like what the situation that's kind of going on, or kind of like what is like kind of the pain point that you're kind of working on. How did you increase like the efficiency working on that pain point? And then like what was the result, if that makes sense. So an example is like, I'm going to go back to this like managed like Asana project portfolio. I'm very curious on, I think kind of just reading through like just like this job experience is like what exactly like what type of like project was it, like a financial like project, I'm assuming. Like how did you like kind of track those KPIs, and then like what did it like result in? Like I think you have like a couple again general numbers in these bullet points, but like I think like for me, like I want to see like more impact. Like I want to see like essentially the scope of like what you're kind of like working on, which you have some aspects of kind of scope. Like I see like 7 departments, that kind of gives me an idea a little bit of your scope. 15% a little bit, but then like building upon that to like the next step, which is like the impact of like what you have like accomplished. Does that kind of like make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you for saying that. I think what's scaring me into further like explaining that, I don't want to be too wordy in these bulletin points. So I think that's like my fear, because I feel like before I had too much, and I feel like when recruiters look at this, they're only going to glance at it for like a minute or two, and then they're just going to move on. So I'm just kind of like in a mindset, okay, like what can I put my experience here that will kind of tell the story, and then if they call me for an interview, I can kind of go obviously into more of my projects and like what I have worked on and the impact it had. So I guess I'm just not sure how to translate all of that in a short bulletin.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like generally there is a way to do that. My initial thought is like, so here you have basically like I think all of your experience listed out to like 2 pages. My initial thought is like, I guess this doesn't necessarily kind of have to do with like formatting, but it kind of more so has to do with like how you're listing out like your experience. Usually kind of like word of like, or just generally what I like seeing is maybe like just 3 to 4 bullet points on a specific experience, and like those are like the top like 3 or 4 like accomplishments that you've made. So like here, like I see you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would try to narrow it down to like 3 to 4 different bullet points, and then have those 3 to 4 bullet points built out in terms of like having it more quantified in terms of what your impact was, including like those numbers. I would rather see like that than have to see like 7 more general kind of bullet points, because like just my initial like subjective thought as I read this resume, and just being transparent, is like I'm looking for really specific, like again, scope and then impact. And I'm like, okay, like here, like 30% boost in onboarding efficiency. I was like, okay, like what exactly like does what exactly does that mean? And then when I read like the follow-up, I'm like using data-driven insights. I'm like, okay, then how did you like, what are those like data-driven insights? Like, are you using like Excel for any type of like data visualization? Because you had mentioned data analytics. Like again, like recruiters are looking for like buzzwords like in your resume, because like recruiters and ATS systems, like we can basically type in specific words like okay, I want someone that has like Asana listed out a bunch of times like in their resume, and I can see like okay, you listed Asana here. But I would like to see it like listed like more, if that makes sense, because like again, in technical recruiting, it's like we're looking for like specific, in some sense, specific software experience. So like we're gonna be looking for like buzzwords, whereas like a lot of these are like you listed out the full gambit of your experience, but it's like not as like granular as I'd like it to be, because like I'm looking for specific like experience, if that makes sense, rather than like just general. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah,
Mhm.
it makes sense. Again, I just
Yeah.
I think I hate to use like frightful, but I just felt always like, okay, if I'm repeating Asana over again of like in my resume, it might be viewed as, okay, this is repetitive. Why is this candidate like, we get the picture? So I think that's also why I haven't. So it's
Mm.
good to hear your thoughts on this, because now I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. And I think Brian, I know Brian just hopped in, but like I think Brian can probably just explain really briefly like why listing out specific software or like again maybe coding languages like in your resume is important, if you wanted to quickly explain that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen both, right? Some people that, you know, list out in front to capture attentions of the recruiter immediately, like, oh, I have experience in using Asana and all these other technology stacks. However, listing your tech stack versus showing what you've done with the tech stack, that's the difference, right? For the computer, the ATS, whether you list it out or you have it sprinkled into your resume experience, it doesn't really quite know. It's just going to rank for the keywords, but a recruiter actually reviewing it is going to look at how you use those keywords into your bullet points, right? So let's just say you listed out all those tech tools, but you never mentioned it in how you used it for your time at Cardinal Financial Company. I'm going to think you just wanted to rank for the keywords and game the algorithm and system, right? That's not the case, obviously, but that gives you a little bit more clarity, right? Yeah, so explaining how you use those technologies together collaboratively. I want to know that you use Asana to drive ROI by coordinating different cross-functional partners and projects that you created that resulted in Z, the results, right? X amount of revenue. So a little bit of what Dan mentioned earlier was the XYZ method. And it should be in this resume template that I shared in the chat. I believe you guys have visibility to that, right?
Yes.
So yeah, if you open that, it'll show you the XYZ method linked, and this is free for you guys to use. And it's the exact template that we use to land all our opportunities. But yeah, hopefully that was a little bit, more clear.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian, for that. And I think like I definitely want to get to the next resume. But I think just to kind of like wrap up and just kind of something to kind of just generally consider is kind of like conceptualizing all these different experiences in like maybe like can't, because I think format wise, I think you could still get it down to maybe like one page. But that's just like my personal opinion. It's ultimately like up to you of like how you want to kind of like organize that out. And then, honestly, it's like highly recommend having multiple resumes with like kind of different like layouts, because it's like you can definitely potentially A/B test different resumes and seeing which ones people or recruiters are biting on more, and that kind of gives you like more data. Usually when it comes to applying jobs, like I usually have an Excel sheet with kind of all the different jobs I've applied for, and I'll hyperlink that specific resume I used. Like it gets really methodical when it comes to like applying to jobs. Because like again, like I treat applying to jobs like it's a job, because essentially you are spending a lot of time on it. So overall, like again, like this is a really great resume. I think again, like just some small tweaks here and there to get a little more granular, to get a little bit more like hard skills in there. Kind of building out like the XYZ method that like Brian mentioned, and I think like you're pretty good to go. And I know we only were able to kind of go over for like 20 minutes, but like at MPH we kind of do more like a thorough like one-to-one like consultation specifically, and we'll like hand hold you through the entire process if that's something that you're interested in. So if that's a
they might only see, the top things, and they may just assume that, okay, she had 3 months of experience in Uber and then 3 months somewhere in Germany, and they may just avoid the rest. So that is the reason I have arranged it like this.
I would say maybe you could put, because both of your experience, this is your, I would say, so the ZS Associates and Uber, that's like industry experience, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say just for readability, you could actually probably just make a line in between and just put like your internships. That way you can kind of differentiate, like these are my internships and these
Right.
full experience. Because yeah, that kind of, I would say, as I'm reading through resumes, when it's like clear, like, okay, they were in a full-time job, it's easier to kind of go through that experience and compare to their internship, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was really helpful.
Of course. Any other questions?
No, I think I am good for right now. So recently, like I keep updating my resume, and this is the most recent version where what I did was like I have mentioned window functions over here. So in bracket, I wrote what kind of window functions I've used. So just adding more conceptual points to it, so that
yeah, I would say focus on more results driven. And then in terms of your tech stack, you can kind of just, I think it's fine in terms of like, as long as you're showcasing the bare minimums of whatever the job requirement is, as long as you're kind of showcasing like, what impact did you have for the company? I think that will be a little bit stronger for your resume.
Got it.
So yeah, I would say like with your background, obviously you're on the analytics side. I don't know, maybe you can like, obviously Uber is a huge company, right? So you can kind of play into like, maybe some of the data sets you were working with were huge, right? So I think it's like kind of playing with that to kind of get a more understanding of like the complexity of what you're working with, or like you mentioned you're like a senior data scientist, like, or excuse me, data analyst. Like, sorry, I used to recruit for data scientists. So you can kind of play into, what other, what else did that entail of being a senior data analyst?
Yeah. Another question that I remembered was, so with Uber, I was in a contract role. So my paychecks were from a company named Indian Software. So my experience letter does not mention anywhere that I was working with Uber. It just mentions, my dates of employment, and yeah. I don't know, like in America, those who are contracted with these companies through a contract system, in their experience letter, is the client name mentioned or not? I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, I think generally it's still it's usually when you go through a background check, it's still going to show just like the company that was contracting you. I think I'm sure if they asked for it, like you could kind of show something, but yeah, generally I think as long as you kind of outlined it like this, where you said exactly who the employer was, that's totally fine.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Yeah, thanks a lot. I will update my resume on the feedback you have given and then keep applying.
All right, so we'll go through the second resume. Ooh. Maybe not. Why is it not going away? So, would love to learn, like, in terms of your job search, like, what are you looking to get out of it? What's your like ideal next role?
For me.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to continue in customer success. It's a position that I've enjoyed the last few years. It's the one that I kind of like targeted 5 years ago. And that's actually why I moved to St. Louis. Before then, I was an account executive in Los Angeles, just because I recognized that that title brought together a lot of the skills that I feel confident in. And yeah, so it worked out. Then I got headhunted back to the Bay Area. And yeah, so I was in my previous role as lead customer success manager for a little under 3 years.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, I was enjoying it. I was working with a workflow automation tool for staffing and recruiting agencies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really open in terms of the industry. You know, I've been in like a fintech type CSM role, as well as like a healthcare tech type CSM role. So honestly, just staying within that title.
Okay.
That's pretty much
Ideal. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Because you asked a little bit about titles and everything. And yeah, I think in terms of like, I do get questions like, oh, should I ever change my title? And I always say, like, just leave it alone, because if you go through like a background check, there's always like questions. But yeah, if you do have like prior experience, obviously, you can somehow kind of showcase that. I don't think it's like a super big deal if it's like a role where there's kind of like different titles. So for instance, like mine is a sourcer, but like I've been also called a recruiter, a talent acquisition, like specialist, you name it, as long as it's kind of in the same wheelhouse. But maybe if you have like a different title that's just like a little abnormal, you're welcome to maybe put like parentheses so people know it's sort of in that field. That's what I usually suggest. Overall, really good format. Like I think it's, you know, ATS compliant. I would say since you're kind of targeting the same industry, like you're more than welcome to like not have a summary if you want to like showcase like what you're really strong at and maybe outside of like your day-to-day or like what you've really excelled at. Or maybe if you want like a job that has like a certain, I don't know, a feel to it, like you want to work on certain problems, I would say putting a summary can kind of help that. So that's my one suggestion for there. Overall, I think you did a really good job of sort of having that very like results driven, having metrics to support that, and kind of going through, you know, what you did, how you did it, what you accomplished. So I think that's great. Some like other components that you may or may not, depending on kind of like the scope you're working with and everything. You mentioned like you're a lead customer success manager. I don't know if you've done like mentorship or anything of that nature or whatever that role entails, just making sure you're really kind of like highlighting what that was about that role that kind of put you in that lead title. I think that's super important. You mentioned like kind of like collaborating with like different staffing clients, like, you know, was it a large volume, or maybe was it like high priority clients, you name it, you know, anything to kind of like help like elevate that. You can kind of add things of those nature as well. Okay, sorry, Brian just texted me. But any than that, man, why is this not going away?
Yeah. I mean, if I could chime in really quick, Marissa, it seems like you followed our formatting. Is that right?
Looks really good.
Yeah. Like you didn't need this.
Did you do this yourself?
No, I'm just kidding. But no, your resume looks great from formatting perspective. You have metrics to show impact right away. Your dates are formatted properly. It's very clean and easy to read. I think one thing that can maybe pinpoint is I see some bullet points at health crowd that can be boosted up, right? So led pandemic driven telehealth expansion to 25 national groups, and there's some white space. If you can beef that up and just make that showcase more of your impact for that organization on how you did that, I think that can improve that to the next level to limit the white space, right? This is a one pager as well, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was in the other breakout room and this question came about. So they had the opposite problem of their resume being too long. And I just want to say this too. If you have a resume that's 2 pages or more, if you have a ton of experience, it's totally okay. But if you have, maybe like 5 to 8 years of experience and you're not sure what to eliminate, any redundant bullet points that you've seen in different roles could help you out, right? So like if you see yourself collaborating with teammates here, collaborating teammates there, maybe you need to mention that once, and we just need to know that you know how to collaborate with C-level execs, perhaps. I don't need to know that you collaborate with your team because that's what you would most likely do, right? So that's just one aspect of that. But yeah, it looks great to me. And great job.
I add in my other experience. So the position that I had before the Colibri Group customer success manager was an account executive for a biotech company. I don't know if I should add that in. I've got other stuff going back a ways, but I just kind of figured to like target it more to customer success. I don't know.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, whatever role that you're trying to land next, it makes sense to start changing up your verbiage, your titles to gear towards that role, right? And making it super clear for the recruiter to identify, oh, customer success, how many years of experience? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that fits that criteria, right?
Yeah, I would say like if it's a position, obviously where they're asking for more years of experience, definitely like highlight that even if you just put like the title and how long you were there, so they know like you have that, bare minimum years of experience that they're looking for.
Exactly. Yep.
I think something else like love to highlight. I mean, I really big on just like your extracurriculars, like things you did outside. I think that just like not just like showcase like, you're making community involvement, but just like it makes an easier conversation, I think, especially when you're talking to like a recruiter the first time or maybe like a hiring manager. So I think putting interests like this is really like super thorough too. So I learned just like a lot about you just like reading through your experience. So really like that.
I think I'd be better off applying as full front end and just kind of really dialing in on the experience on that side of things.
Yes, I would recommend that. Like again, like that's why I mentioned like the full stack experience is nuanced depending on like what the company is. So like I would probably recommend changing it to like a senior front end engineer. Or if you like are interested in moving more toward like a back end development role, and then like you can still like list out like these technologies, like that's totally fine because like that's what you've been doing, but I would like to see more. Of course, like if you're using like MongoDB or have some experience, then I'm like, okay, like then like let's see some of like some SQL, NoSQL. Have you looked on like maybe start looking into gaining some experience with like relational database technologies as well? It's like, have you started like touching like the cloud at all? Like that's kind of like that's kind of essentially like the natural, in some senses like the natural kind of like progression like of things. So that's kind of like what I would probably like to see if you are kind of moving more toward a, because like when I read through this, it's like I think I'm like, okay, front end, okay, like MongoDB, like that's a little bit an outlier. So I probably would like to see a little bit more stuff in terms of like, yeah, like more database technology.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Just kind of align with one side or the other a little bit more stronger, because right now
Yeah, yeah.
it feels like it's a little bit
Like I'm not
uh
sure. Yeah, I'm like, are you like where
like, where
exactly?
do you fit? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
and
that
that's
makes
why
perfect
like
sense.
again, like
Okay.
it's like it's more work, but having like different resumes for different roles. So in like your case, like you probably should have like a front end engineering resume, and then you should have a back end engineering resume. And then you should still have like a full stack like engineering resume as well. That's why like although this is like the resume like workshop, this is just like one step like in our 4-step framework, because like we do have like our job search strategy point that we have, and that point is very important. Like as we like basically at MPH, we'll like basically walk through job descriptions like with you, and then look at your resume and seeing like where does it like match up, or how does it like line up. um because that's really
Mhm.
important, because it's like if again you're just using one resume for everything, again it's like you're casting out a very wide net, and the percentage of getting a hit just like lessens, and that's just pure like percentage
Mhm.
wise. Because like again recruiters, yes we are like we're looking like, basically like we meet up with hiring managers, and they give us like everything. They're like, we're looking for this ideal candidate, we're looking for like this type of experience. Depending on leveling, they'll be like, oh yeah, we might be open to like train on things, but just like the way that humans work, it's like we yes say that we're open to training on certain technologies, but humans just kind of generally want to take the easy way out, and they want to like just not train as much, right? So like that's
Yeah.
why if they see something that's a little bit more niche to kind of toward what they're looking for based on like the job description, then they're like, okay, like I might bite on that more. So I think just I think I'm kind of like talking in circles and kind of repeating myself, but I think you generally understand like what I'm trying to get at in terms
Mhm.
of like these bullet points, and also like these coding languages that are listed. Um, more tailored toward specific like job description.
Can
Again,
I
like
ask
my
you one question regarding that?
yeah.
Uh,
Go for it. Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure if it's, within the scope of this particular event, but if I have multiple resumes, how do I show this on LinkedIn? How do I
So
present myself in that case? If I'm
yes,
kind of applying, like, especially if it's like as different as, full stack or front end, how do
yeah.
I display myself in
That's a
that
great
case?
that's a great question. So to answer that question, the LinkedIn profile is a supplement first off, like to the resume. The LinkedIn profile is important because essentially it's a social media platform for engagement, where it kind of gets you to potentially have people reach out to you. I'd say like in terms of like how you build out your resume compared to your like LinkedIn profile, like my 2 cents on just your specific experience, like I think you have a better chance of getting hits applying to more like front end experience, because I see like web administrator, so that's more like front end for me. I see like tech stack here, more front end. Here
Mhm.
more like front end. So like you can definitely build a really strong case for yourself for like front end kind of like experience. Um,
Mhm.
Again, like if you do want to pivot more toward like back end, then change it to like at least like the titling, change it to like back end. I think recruiters aren't gonna like ding you on like, oh, so you have like full stack on your LinkedIn profile, but then you list like front end, because like again, those are like cross functional, but like again, like just for me, like consistency can be important. But that's kind of like my 2 cents. I think Brian wanted to kind of add in something, so I'll let him kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to add to that, I would ask you, Tyler, which role are you more excited about?
I mean, I am open to either. I think my ultimate goal is to get at a larger company. And if front end is going to get me there quicker, then I like being front end, you know? So I'd be happy with either, I think.
Okay. So yeah, I would start gearing towards that. You can put both on your LinkedIn profile because that's what they're going to read. But if you're gearing towards more front end, make that known so that your roles that you're applying for and the recruiter can clearly see, oh, wow, this guy is clearly front end full stack versus back end.
Yep.
That's going to make their job easier to allocate you in a bucket.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. So I know we're almost at 2 p.m. Like time has literally flown by. I appreciate everyone asking questions. And I would love to like get to like everyone's resume, but unfortunately tyranny of the urgent and kind of a specific time frame. But again, like here at MPH we do provide services even more intentional than this. Again, I'm not perfect. These are just like my 2 cents. I'm learning every single day kind of how to continue to get better in terms of my career consulting advice. But yeah, if you are interested, please go to our website, look through our material. We do offer like initial, consultations. And again, we'll walk you through like the, 4-step framework, 1 step at a time, and really like hand hold it and get you to kind of where you're looking for and kind of identifying those pain points. But yeah, I'll let Brian kind of like wrap things up, at least for this breakout room.
Cool. I'm going to close all the breakout rooms and we'll get back into one. Then we'll reconvene. All right. Let's see.
All right. Thank you both.
Of course. Anytime. Thanks for participating, Tyler. Hopefully that was helpful. What'd you think?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was really helpful, honestly.
Okay.
So a few things I didn't think too much about, but seeing his take on it was definitely really useful. So I'm excited to make those changes like right away.
Yeah, what were some things that you've learned that really stood out?
I think the idea that he was saying I was kind of spreading myself too thin, where it's like it's not really clear where I'm fitting in, especially
let's leave this breakout room and go to the main one. I would love to hear your opinion to be shared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. Okay, sorry to interrupt again, but Tyler, you said you had an amazing discovery with your talk with Dan while reviewing your resume. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I really appreciated it. Dan kind of highlighted the fact that I was spreading myself a little too thin and not really going for a particular role. And, on top of that, it seems my summary section may not really be necessary in my particular case because it wasn't really adding much other than some jargon and just kind of bringing back he also mentioned, making things quantifiable, and just all that feedback was really helpful. This is my first time creating a resume in quite a while, so really appreciate the feedback.
Awesome to hear. Anyone else have something insightful to share about what they learned today about their resume or anything?
I just wanted to say thank you again, Brian, for making this event possible, and for Daniel as well. Thank you guys so much. I really greatly appreciate it, and let me know how in the future I can help support you guys and spread the message. I guess I can start. I'm not very good with like posting stuff on LinkedIn, so I'm like trying to get there. But just like any way that I can help spread the message as well. So.
Oh, that's awesome. No, yeah, I mean, a quick, simple post, maybe shouting us out, sharing what you've learned, or just giving us a review would be so awesome. Maybe we can send out a follow-up message on meetup.com or email if you guys think that'd be okay.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, you guys are here for us. feeling is mutual. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. If there's anything else anyone wants to share, if not, I want to say thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Dan and Kirsten, for helping out everyone. And for those that didn't get their resume reviewed, we'll have more sessions like this. So stay tuned, stay active. It'd be awesome if you guys can give us a quick shout out, but thank you all. All right.
All
Bye
right,
now.
thank you.
See ya.
thank you. Bye.